After years of predicting Persona 5 going multiplat, mainly on Nintendo consoles, I've had to deal with a lot of angry Sony stans who were outraged over me mentioning the idea. Hell, not a day went by where I didn't get comments calling me a Nintendo fan man on these videos, despite the fact that I argued the series breaking free would actually be a win for everybody, including Sony. But on all the negative responses I've gotten, the ones that really confused me the most are the ones that called me greedy since the Nintendo Switch already had Shin Megami Tensei V, as if I was some sort of Nintendo spokesperson or something. For whatever reason, a lot of people took me wanting Persona games to go multiplat as some sort of an anti-Sony stance, and I'd always hear things like, oh yeah, well, if you want Persona to go to the Nintendo Switch, then you have to admit that Shin Megami Tensei V's gotta go to the PlayStation as well. It's like, yeah, I totally think that it should, because just like Persona 5, I can't imagine Shin Megami Tensei 5 is not inevitably going to follow suit. And if you give me like 6 hours, I'll explain why with like 5 hours and 52 minutes to spare, give or take. Alright, so given that Shin Megami Tensei V was shown in the Switch's initial console reveal and wasn't a multiplat right off the bat, I think it's safe to assume that Nintendo and Atlus had some sort of a deal for the game to be an exclusive on the Switch, at least for a little while. But even so, we've seen these types of situations countless times in the past with plenty of other games, and I can't think of one time where one of the good ones remained exclusive to one console. Like, sure, a lot of people do associate the Shin Megami Tensei franchise as kind of sort of a Nintendo exclusive, with the one exception being the third game that was on the PS2, because Nintendo was repelling RPGs even harder than I repelled child support during that time period. Like, what most people seem to forget, though, is that not even the first two Shin Megami Tensei games were really exclusive to the Super Famicom. I mean, sure, most people are talking about the Super Famicom version whenever the first game comes up, but it was also on the Sega CD, PC Engine, and, well, the PS1, along with the second game. In fact, the only Shin Megami Tensei games that have ever really truly been exclusive to Nintendo were Shin Megami Tensei 4 and 4 Apocalypse on the 3DS. Those games haven't ever been ported to anything else, most likely has more to do with the fact that they were on the 3DS than anything else. I mean, I'm sure all of Atlus's 3DS games are gonna go multiplat at some point, but I could get why they wouldn't be a top priority, seeing as how they're not exactly a matter of copy and pasting like a lot of other games Atlus has in their catalog, given all the 3DS's gimmicks and lower resolution. But like the second Shin Megami Tensei 4, or really any of Atlus's other RPGs on the 3DS get ported to anything, I'm sure it's probably gonna be for every console. I mean, putting a game out on more platforms actually means that more people can buy it, and if you do a ton of complicated math equations, then you'll actually find out that that means more money's to be made as well, assuming Nintendo wouldn't go for exclusivity deals on decade-old games anyway. I mean, after all, Sony didn't pay extra to keep the Megaten 3 remaster exclusive to PlayStation, just like how they didn't keep Personas 3 through 5 as exclusives for longer, so assuming there was some kind of a deal in the first place, why would Nintendo ever want to pay extra to keep Shin Megami Tensei 5 to themselves for all of eternity? Like, I get that having first dibs on a game would lead to more consoles being sold at first, but I think it's safe to say that everybody who wanted Shin Megami Tensei 5 bad enough to buy a new console probably already did by this point. And no matter how good an exclusive may be, there's always going to be tons of people who just won't get new hardware for one game. This is why I think temporary exclusives are a dumb idea that only hurts everybody involved in the first place, but in this case, I at least kinda understand since Nintendo didn't announce up front that the exclusivity would only be temporary, thus defeating the entire purpose of locking it down to begin with. You know, kind of like that time Microsoft paid an assload of money to get a Tomb Raider game all to themselves for like 1 year and made sure everybody knew up front that they could just wait a little bit and get the definitive version on PlayStation. Since there's surely tons of PlayStation owners without Switches who'd probably love to play Shin Megami Tensei 5, Atlus would be silly to just leave it on Nintendo forever given how much more money they'd make. And unlike Persona 5 Royal coming to the Switch, there wouldn't even be any hardware concerns when it comes to porting the game over to the PS4, and definitely not 5. Hell, Shin Megami Tensei 5 might even be able to run on the PS3 for all I know. And even though Xbox might not exactly be known for JRPGs, there'd still be plenty of people willing to buy the enhanced version of Shin Megami Tensei 5 with an Xbox port, which would be easy money for Atlus since it'd really just be a matter of copy and pasting it over from the PlayStation. Even if no one bought the Xbox version though, Microsoft would still probably put the game on Game Pass like they did with Persona 5 Royal, and honestly I think putting this type of a game on Game Pass would actually create new fans for the genre who might not be willing to pay to give it a try, so either way, Atlus is getting paid, Shin Megami Tensei 5 will be a bigger franchise with more resources likely being put into the next game, and even if you are a Nintendo fan, man, then it's not like anybody's taking your copy away, so anyway, slice it. Shin Megami Tensei 5 going multiplat's a win-win for everybody, including Nintendo, just like how Persona going multiplat's a win-win for everybody, including Sony. mean, if you bought a Switch just to play Shin Megami Tensei V, then you still did get to play it first, and Nintendo made their money off of it. So, at this point, I don't see any reason why more people shouldn't have access to a game that I already own and love. Just like with Persona 5 Royal, another game that I already owned and loved before it went multiplat, Shin Megami Tensei V is a game that I liked so much that I'm all for as many people having access to it as possible. Not because I'm such a swell guy who wants to spread happiness throughout all the land, but because I'm a selfish piece of trash who wants something that I personally like to become more popular so the budget and resources for the next game can be that much greater. I have no idea when the game legally could go multiplat, but seeing as that took Persona 5 about 6 years, or really 2 if you count Royal, then I'd say that it's probably going to be at least another year, assuming there isn't some kind of a Shin Megami Tensei 5 Apocalypse follow-up around the corner. Regardless of whether it's soon or in a few years, there's literally no reason why Shin Megami Tensei 5 shouldn't jump to PlayStation, Xbox, and even Steam, and I don't see any scenario where this isn't going to happen eventually. But anyway, that's all for today, but if you got a kick out of my incoherent rambling and disturbing imagery though, then you should check out this video I made putting Shin Megami Tensei 5 up against Persona 5 Royal, but if you'll excuse me though, I gotta go pick my uncle up from Little League practice. Don't ask. Later!